Hi, everyone, and welcome to this introductory video on making your first member-initiated short film, or MIP for short. I'm Alan Wong, and today we're going to walk you through how to make your own story idea, take your own story idea, cut, and here we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this introductory video on how to make your making your first member-initiated short film, or MIP for short. I'm Alan Wong, and today we're going to walk you through how to take your story idea and turn it into a completed short film under the ACTRA MIP agreement. Whether you're an actor wanting to create your own showcase piece or a storyteller ready to take the next step behind the camera, this video will give you a practical roadmap to make it happen. Even if you just want to make a fun short film with friends, there are standard practices that you can use to get the best results possible. We'll cover everything from developing your idea to building your team, to registering your MIP, shooting your film, and sharing it with the world. We'll also review the MIP paperwork, ownership share scenarios, and incentive grant, so you can take full advantage of the opportunities available to you. And remember, great filmmaking isn't about expensive gear or flashy special effects. It's about storytelling, collaboration, and creativity. All right, so let's dive in. Okay, step one. Finding and developing your story. Every film starts with an idea, but a good short film idea is simple, emotional, and personal. Ask yourself, what story do I want to tell that only I can tell? Start with something from your own experience or a moment you've witnessed in your community. Keep it focused. What can be told clearly in 5 to 10 minutes? Remember, to be eligible to be screened at the MIP showcase, your film must cap at 13 minutes total. This includes credits. Try this. Describe your story in one line. If you can't summarize it in a single sentence, it might be too complicated for a short. Once you have your idea, start sketching out your short film structure, setup, conflict, and resolution. Try to follow a 3-act structure, unless you're doing something a bit more experimental, in which case you'll still need to be able to describe the purpose of the film in a way that will resonate with audiences, especially if you're applying for grants. Focus on relatable characters and real emotional stakes. If you're wanting to experiment with different genres like action, comedy, horror, thriller, that same core principle applies. The best stories, no matter the genre, need to have characters that the audience will care about. You don't need fancy software. Try Writer Duet, Celtics, or Trelby. You can Google free script writing software and those names should come up. The key is to just start writing. There are writing format standards, which you can read up about online or by using one of these free screenwriting tools. You can figure it out with trial and error. I promise it's not as hard as you think. Anyone who has read a script already kind of knows what to include. Writing does become more nuanced and specific depending on the level you are working at, but for now, just do your best. Now that you have your story, let's talk about writing for production. That means thinking about what you actually have access to. So write to your resources. Use real locations you can access for free. Keep your cast small and simplify your props. Short films thrive when they're focused. Alternatively, if you insist on creating something a bit more ambitious with a lot of different elements and moving parts, make sure you have the support. The more complexity, the more hands on deck, the better. Before you lock your script, get feedback. Share it with a friend, another actor, or a filmmaker you trust. Fresh eyes always make it better. You don't have to submit a final draft for the MIP application, but you should update the office with your script revisions if you make any significant changes. Step 3, the MIP agreement and funding. Now let's talk about the ACTRA MIP agreement, your key to creating a short film under the ACTRA banner. The member-initiated production agreement allows ACTRA members to produce their own short films using ACTRA performers while still maintaining union protection and professionalism. There's also the MIP Incentive Grant Program, which offers funding support for selected projects. Let's break down what's involved. Okay, so this is the ACTRA Manitoba Member-Initiated Productions web page. And on here, you can find more information about the MIPs, the deadlines, other important dates, and then also some information about the various prizes. And then at the bottom here, you have 7 documents that you'll need to download and review and fill out. So let's just go through them one at a time. Okay, so first here we have the ACTRA Manitoba MIP guidelines. So this basically just goes over what a MIP is. It is a form of agreement that ACTRA has created to be able to allow ACTRA members to create their own short films and work with other ACTRA members to learn and also to do something that is self-motivated or self-initiated. Please go through this. There's a lot of details here. If you have any questions about any of these details, like for example, the ownership agreement scenarios, because there are quite a few different scenarios here, but it just means that there's flexibility in how the scenarios could work. It's actually very beneficial for you to understand these scenarios. Next, we have the MIP registration form. So as you can see, it's a pretty basic registration form. It basically just registers you to do a MIP. This has nothing to do with the grant or the incentive program yet. This is just to be able to make a MIP. And so it asks for some pretty basic information, a script, a budget. And if you don't have a budget or don't know how to make a budget, don't worry, we'll go through that in a little bit. Just some basic information here. If you know your projected dates of prep and photography, that's great. But if you don't, then an estimate is fine. Like say, March 2026 is fine to use for that. And then checking here, signing, dating to fill that completely. Next here, we have the MIP incentive grant policy. So now we're talking about the incentive grant, all right, which is a separate thing from the actual MIP itself. Because the MIP, anybody can make a MIP. You don't need to apply for these grants or to be successful in getting a grant in order to make a MIP. Please go through. As you can see, there are 7 grants available, a total of 7 grants. A minimum of 3 will be awarded to emerging, which means a member who has produced or held the role of one of the creatives on 1 or fewer MIPs. So basically, either it's your first time or you've only done 1. The DEIB prize, the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging prize is provided by the DEIB Committee of ACTRA Manitoba, and it is an additional grant of $1,000 or 2 additional grants of $500 will be awarded to selected projects which are created with and reflect stories of marginalized individuals or groups. There's also the Indigenous Prize, which is sponsored by Eagle Vision, and 1 additional grant of $1,000 will be awarded to a selected project which is created with and reflect the stories of Indigenous people. For both of these prizes, the recipients will be notified that they have been awarded these prizes, but they won't receive the money until they've submitted their final project. The grants all go through a juried process, and so just so you know, it's not actually ACTRA staff or other members who are making the decision. They're professionals from outside of ACTRA who are making these decisions. The rest of the guideline you can go through, and if you have any other questions regarding that, you can always reach out to the office to ask. All right, here we have the MIP Incentive Grant Program application form, which you can see is very similar to the MIP registration form. The big difference here is that we also ask you to include a statement of intent, which is your chance to tell us why you wish to make this film, why it's important to you, maybe some other description of what your vision is for it. But yeah, maximum 200 words, and please attach as a separate document. Now we are on to the ACTRA MIP ownership agreement. So this form is not something that you will hand in at the application deadline. It's actually something that you will fill out and hand in sometime around production. Because what you'll do is you will get everyone who ends up being cast or participating in the MIP to sign, print their name, provide their member number, what their role is. If they're an actor, that's great. If they're a camera person, that's great as well, or they're doing sound or editing, you put that here in the function column, their signature, and then their ownership share. Now, I've done these before where we've had more people than there are spaces here, than there are rows. So feel free to sort of make your own ownership agreement form. But as long as it contains all this important information, then you should be fine. And if you are doing one that is for actor members and then one for non-actor members, you can do two separate forms. That way it's very clear which ones are actor members and which ones are not. And finally, here we have the ACTRA security agreement, which is just a bit of ACTRA protocol that needs to be taken care of. Essentially, you need to sign that you are taking the responsibility of ensuring that any one owed revenues for this film will be paid out. Essentially, it assigns responsibility. And the debtor is usually the person or people who are in charge of the production, usually the producer or producers. So just a couple of notes about the paperwork. Ownership shares are based on each participant's contribution. Actors, directors, and producers can all share equally or proportionally. Note that 5% of the share goes to PRS, who will administer the net revenues on your behalf, meaning that if you do receive payment for the film in festival screening fees or broadcaster license fees, etc., you must report it to PRS and submit the funds to them for distribution to all actor members who are assigned a percentage. Non-actor participants can only be assigned a maximum total of 40% ownership share. PRS also handles those payments, so you don't need to do it yourself, but you will be responsible for providing PRS the accurate contact information so that they can do their job. If you are paying crew, then they do not need to be included in the ownership, but if they're volunteering their time, equipment, or any other contribution that warrants a share in ownership, this is a great way to have everyone involved be invested in the project, literally and figuratively. So common questions include, can I use non-actor actors? What if my film includes stunts or minors? And how do I handle insurance? So all of those are covered in the MIP guidelines. So read them carefully and reach out to the ACTRA office if you're unsure. A new benefit this year for MIP grant recipients is that general liability production insurance will be subsidized by ACTRA Manitoba in partnership with Hub International. This insurance is separate from the mandatory accident on set insurance, but is highly recommended for all productions. The insurance covers locations, props, sets, wardrobe, vehicle, and equipment rental. It does not cover personal injury to non-actor participants. If your film includes stunts, there may be an additional premium required. For further information that you can't find the answer to in the MIP guidelines, you can contact the office. You can also look for additional funding from Manitoba Arts Council, Winnipeg Arts Council, Winnipeg Film Group, or Manitoba Film Music to help your project grow. All of these funding options have their own set of guidelines and criteria, so do your research well before the deadline. Okay, step 4, pre-production and planning. Once your paperwork is approved, it's time to prep your shoot. Build your team. Director, producer, DOP, sound, editor. What is your role? Careful not to take on too many roles yourself, as it will be challenging to juggle different roles, especially on the shoot days. These are core positions, but it's always good to have extra hands on the day to make sure that things run smoother. So having assistants is always good. Many film-specific crew, especially if they work professionally, will have people that they like to work with. Have conversations with them about what size of team they envision they would need for the project. For casting, think about who best fits your story. Hold small auditions or readings with your friends. It's up to you. I always find that holding auditions is super interesting, and you get to kind of feel what it's like to be on the other side of the table. So let's talk about the exception of using non-members. Okay, so typically only actor members are allowed to be on camera. The exception to this is if you have gone through an audition process and have not been able to find a suitable actor member for that specific role. In this case, a request for the exception can be made in writing to the ACTRA MIP committee, and they will determine if your request can be granted. For example, If your film requires an elderly Korean woman and is essential for the story, and there are none in the Actor Manitoba membership, then that is an acceptable justification for casting a non-member. Scout your locations early. Make sure you have permission and check for power, noise, and access. Keep in mind the needs of the people involved. Are there accessibility needs? Does the location have washrooms? Where will you break for lunch? Does it have facilities for handling food or catering? Does it have a space for holding, for gear storage, parking? These are all things to think about when you are deciding on a location. Okay, let's look at some budget samples. This is the MIP budget template, and there are 3 different scenarios here for budgets, for sizes of budgets. The first one here under column C and D is what you would try to budget for if you just got the MIP grant incentive, $1,250. So spreading that out as much as you can, obviously providing the crew with some honorarium for their time, and the actors and all the other actor members are participants in the ownership share. So they're getting the ownership share, so they're not getting paid, but the other crew, you are paying them and not providing ownership share. Or you could do both, maybe a smaller amount. Depends on what you want to negotiate with that. So for this here, as you can see, there's not a lot of leeway for a lot of crew, but we're just basically budgeting for a 1-day shoot with 2 actors. So like the most basic, smallest type of production. We'll have a DOP or camera operator, obviously, an AD or set PA to help out, a sound person, lunches, craft service, maybe a little bit of money for rental, just in case you do need to rent some equipment, your AOS insurance, which is $50 minimum, your $100 production insurance through Hub, $100 for a hard drive that you'll want to keep all of the master files on, and then also a bit of an honorarium for an editor as well. As you can see, it kind of gets bigger with the next one. If you're able to get some additional funding up to $2,500, then great. And if you're able to fundraise even more, say like up to $4,000, then you get into, you're able to do a lot more with it. 3 days here, 4 actors, 5 extras, 1 stunt. This is still pretty lean. People are still doing it, providing their services or acting as volunteer, but that's the great thing about Winnipeg, actually, and Manitoba in general, is that it seems like it's a very supportive community, and there's lots of people who want to just work on cool projects with other people. There's other paperwork, obviously, that we could go through, but there's also a lot of resources online for those things. If you want to look at how to make a schedule or a shot list, do storyboarding, how to do a call sheet, there's lots of resources online about all of those different things. I like putting all of those into a binder. Having a production binder is very useful, especially having it on set. A tip about the insurance as well. When you get insurance for a location or for equipment rentals, like say you're renting equipment from whoever you get to be your DP, and they have their own equipment that they're bringing to set. You want to ensure that that equipment is insured. So what they need to do is give you a list of their equipment with approximate values, and then you send that to the insurance company, and they will give you a certificate to say that this stuff is insured, this person and their gear is insured, or if it's for a location, that this location is insured, right? And that certificate is something that you can provide to them as sort of a guarantee or sort of a reassurance. And also having those certificates in your binder, in your production binder, is also good. So a well-prepared shoot day saves time, money, and stress. And trust me, this is very true. Okay, so step 5, production. This is where it all comes together, production day. So whether it's 1, 2, or more days, these days are critical for getting all the shots you need for your film. So you want to be as prepared as possible and as efficient as possible to avoid wasting time or making the days run too long, tiring everyone out. Remember, filmmaking should be an enjoyable, creative process, and the better things run logistically, the more freedom you will have to create. Every person on set has a role. Respecting these roles keeps things moving smoothly. Even if you're using minimal gear, good lighting and clear sound make a huge difference. If you have to choose, always prioritize clean audio. That means unplugging appliances that have a low hum, turning off furnaces or air conditioning units that are making noise, or even using blankets or other things to dampen the sound coming from outside the door. Choosing a location based on sound is a good idea. An outdoor location that isn't too close to heavy traffic or a flight path will save you a lot of time if you don't have to wait for the ambulance or plane to fly overhead. If actors and crew are volunteering their time, the least you can provide everyone are good, nourishing meals and snacks to keep everyone's energy up. Make sure you account for people's dietary requirements and any allergies that they might have, and a first aid kit is also a must have on set. Directing actors. So, when directing actors, be clear and calm. Keep the energy positive, and don't be afraid to do multiple takes to find the right moment. Never show an actor how to act. Instead, discuss the intention of a line or an action to elicit a natural reaction from them. Good directors let the actor act. Now, things will go wrong. Weather, batteries, time, expectations, and differing artistic opinions, but that's a part of filmmaking. Stay adaptable and creative. It's important to maintain a professional and positive atmosphere on set, especially since many of the participants are likely volunteering their time. As a leader, you need to lead by example, ensuring respect and safety on set is upheld at all times. There should be no excuse for any sort of harassment, yelling, or emotional outbursts that aren't part of the actor's performance. Work out any disagreements like adults and keep the production moving forward. Clear communication will ensure that you are all on the same page. All right, step 6, post-production. We're getting to the end. Now that you've got your footage, it's time to bring it to life. If you have the luxury of a script supervisor tracking your shots, then this process will be relatively easy for you or your editor. If you are winging it and going through all of your takes to find the best one after the fact, then it will take more time and potentially more will cost you more for your editor's time. Editing can be the most time-consuming part of the whole filmmaking process, but it is also where the film comes together. Compare editing to the act of painting, whereas everything else that happened before has been prepping the canvas, mixing the paints, and figuring out what you want to paint with the unique colors that you want. Post-production includes editing, sound, music, color correction, and adding your credits or any graphics that you want. You can edit yourself using free software like DaVinci Resolve, CapCut, or Premiere Rush. Focus on pacing and emotional flow. How does the story feel when you're watching it? A tip for sound is that you can find royalty-free music from sites like Freesound or Artlist. Just Google them. You'll find some. There are lots of online courses and tutorials on editing. However, if you're in a time crunch, an experienced editor will be able to do the work in less than half the time it takes for a beginner. Using editing software can be complex, so either keep it simple and basic or go get an editor. If working with a professional editor, here is the standard workflow. Working with the editor to communicate with them your vision. You can work together with them in the editing suite or wherever to get a rough cut, which is a first draft version of your film. Review and communicate any changes or edits you want to make to settle on a fine cut. At this point, add graphics if necessary and credits, title, and end. Once there are no more changes needed and everyone on the creative team is happy, like the writer, director, producer, even like your main actors, then you have a picture lock, meaning no more visual changes are needed and you can continue on to sound mix, mastering, and coloring. So the sound mix, this is to ensure the sound is the best it can be. A sound mixer will ensure that the dialogue is clear Important sound effects are inserted or prominent if they're already there, and they may add sound effects if needed. This can be done at the same time as the coloring of the film. So color correction or coloring, usually the DOP has a say in how their footage should be colored. This affects tone and overall look of the film. Sometimes they will have a specific LUT that they wish to use. LUT stands for lookup table, which functions kind of like filters on Instagram, giving video a specific look. Once your film is locked, export in standard festival formats. Having a few different formats is beneficial depending on where the film or video will be shown. If showing on a big screen, you want as high a resolution as possible. Look into different formats online, but the standard format that you will need for most festivals and screens is either a high-res H.264 MP4 or Apple ProRes MOV. You will likely not need anything higher than a 4K video, and in most cases, a 2K or even 1080p will be sufficient for most screens. So exporting in these three resolutions will cover most purposes. If you have a need for DCP, Digital Cinema Package, which can play on DCP projectors, which is what most like commercial theaters have, then you will likely have to pay for that conversion. Always, always back up your files. Standard practice is to have two external hard drives, one that you work off of and one for the backup of all of your footage and sound files. Okay, step 7, sharing your work. Congratulations, you've made a film. Now let's get it out there. Besides screening your film at the MIP showcase, which can count as a private screening, leaving your premiere status open to festivals that may want to be the first ones to screen it, you can submit to festivals, local, national, or international. Film Freeway is a platform that makes submitting to festivals easy. Some prestige festivals like TIFF, Cannes, or Berlinale have their own submission platforms. It can be expensive to submit to certain festivals, so figure out your priorities or where you wish to show your film and take advantage of early bird submission discounts. You can do some research on festival strategy, as it can be a complex world, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of film festivals around the world. Your MIP short can be a calling card for larger projects. Use it to build your professional portfolio. Hopefully, after you have completed your first MIP film, future films will be easier to make, as you will have learned skills to build upon. It's all part of your creative journey as an actor and an artist. Some tips for promotion: create an IMDb page, build a simple website, or ramp up your social media presence, tag your collaborators, etc. Okay, so that's it. We've covered a lot today, from idea to post-production to promotion. So now it's time to get to work, get your MIP application form in, build your team, and I want to wish you the best of luck in your MIP making journey. Filmmaking is about telling stories that matter. Your story matters, and we can't wait to see what you create. Good luck.